Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be reviewing a really thin book, small book that I pulled out of the library just because it looked kind of interesting and it wound up being a really enjoyable book, and that is Church Curiosities, Strange Objects and Bizarre Legends by David Castleton. And it just has this odd creature on the front. This book, I feel like, I do not know, I haven't looked into this, but I feel like this was the book that the author always wanted to exist, but he couldn't find something to fill the void, or it was a book that was just a compilation of his various passions, so he pulled it together. He is a writer. My understanding though was that he does fiction, and this was a non-fiction work. So this book is kind of an overview of churches in the UK. And their interesting legends, histories, items, artifacts, customs, all of that. And it's a very thin book, so this is by no means like an academic dig into the past of these churches, but it's a very, very, very interesting overview. So the book was just kind of a collection of pictures with text, so it wasn't very, again, it wasn't very deep. And it was divided into, it grouped the interesting things about the churches in different sections. So it first started off with the pagan past and the early Christian past, which I think was a very good inclusion to the book, just because the pagan past of Britain is obviously not as well known. I say Britain, all those, Britain, okay. My ignorance about the United Kingdom is showing. Wales, Scotland, Ireland, all these places. They obviously had a pagan past before the Christian religion came in and became prominent. Even when the Romans were there, they brought some of their elements of the religion and they mixed them with locals' religion, folklore, beliefs. And it was very interesting to read about how the Christian communities would kind of be built around previously religious or holy spaces to kind of co-opt some legitimacy from different things that had belonged to the previous religion. So he talked about finding things either built into a church or maybe incorporated into a church wall, or trees or tree groves that were there that are believed to have been part of the pagan past. So the church came in and took these religious items or religious places and kind of incorporated them to lend some legitimacy to their religion and claim, which was a very interesting place to start. I think I'm glad they started there. It just kind of added something to the book. Then we went into all the interesting things that are in the churches, which again, this is by no means comprehensive, but we had like different body parts of saints, dead animals, interesting carvings, crypts, secret passages, and bodies, graveyards, different beliefs about graveyards through time, such as people thinking someone who had died was a witch or a vampire, so acting differently around their grave accordingly. Body snatchers in, I think it was the 1800s, 17 or 1800s, when capital punishment was on the decline, so medical facilities needed bodies, but they weren't getting them through the traditional means, so it became much more, or it became financially lucrative to steal bodies, and some of the creative solutions that places came up with to prevent their bodies from being stolen. And then we also had some cute stories, such as a cat, which I actually looked up and recently died. It was Dorkins Magnificat, I think. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. It was a cat that was just found, and this church brought it in, and it was like the church cat for a while. What else happened in the book? Yeah, secret passageways. There were certain churches, I believe it was the Middle Ages, where if you made it to the church and like were able to knock on the door, you could be under church protection for like 30 days. So if you're being chased by the law for some crime that you had supposedly committed, you could go there and you could try to work things out for 30 days while being under the church's protection. There was so many interesting stories in this book. Every story was very brief. They didn't spend a lot of time on each story, but each story was just enough information to get you really interested. And I spent a lot of time on Google. I'd read a story and I'd be like, wait, I need to know more about this. So then I go on Google and look it all up. And I think this is a perfect how do you say this, like taster book, like the perfect thing to whet your appetite, the perfect thing to get you started and think, what kind of book do I want to read next, or what do I want to learn about next from this wide variety of interesting information that's in here. There were stories about them sending like a boy playing a drum and then also a guy playing a bagpipe, two separate stories. I guess everyone in this area thought the same, down like abandoned tunnels, and they would follow them above ground to see if they would come out the other end. Spoiler, they did not. I think I already mentioned like being able to make it to the door and like you'd be able to get safety. There was one story in here about a man who, I believe he worked in the graveyard. He was digging something and he actually fell because, lo and behold, beneath the church was a crypt that was full of bones from dead people. And I think they came from, how did the book say it? I think like they needed more space in the graveyard, or there was an unused graveyard they were going to use for something else. They just kind of, which, how is a graveyard unused? There are people there. Like, it's not unused, it's still in use. It's going to be in use for quite a while longer. But maybe people had forgotten about it. No one knew who's buried there, so they just kind of put all the bones in the church's basement, essentially. This guy fell while digging onto a pile of bones, 4 meters, and actually lost his like cognitive functioning ability because of it. I guess it scared him so badly. There was another story about the devil appears a lot. People in the Middle Ages didn't have a whole lot to do besides, I guess, make up stories about the devil, and that was interesting enough, which, I mean, if I was stuck in the Middle Ages, I'd probably do some of that too. So I'm sure there are real reasons that the devil played such a huge part in the public imagination in the Middle Ages. I just don't know them, so I'll have to read a book on that. There was a story, there were many stories about the devil in here, but there's one story about how the devil did some devious things to a church, and then they were gonna catch him, but he ran off. And then there was just like this side story where he played leapfrog with these boys in a field, so he's like jumping over people, like, you know, and then he opened up a hole in the ground, and I guess everyone like leapfrogged into the hole and disappeared forever and ever, which I'd love to know what people make of that story, if it was just invented, if it was referencing a real thing. But yeah, this was a very, very interesting book. It ended with interesting rituals or like interesting customs. So there was one about how a boy became a bishop around Christmas time, and like he would take on the role of a bishop for everything except for like saying the mass, I think they said. So they would like, he would wear all the stuff and go to all the functions, and he was essentially the bishop. There's another custom about clowns. So there was, from some town, there was a clown who was the first professional clown to use makeup or something. So they have like a clown service, I guess. There's another one, which I think this was in London, where the parish has to go and mark their boundaries from, I guess, rival churches, because I guess, I don't know if the parishes would like try to steal some land from their neighbors. They would go to the end of their boundaries and like whack it with a stick. And they continue to this day, except one of the boundaries is over the river. So they go out on a boat and they hold someone upside down, and that person beats the river. And just interesting things like that. The only critique I would have of the book is it just kind of ends. Like, you're reading about a very interesting story, and this is just one interesting story after another that are just kind of grouped under these titles that are the chapters. So I'm reading along. Oh yeah, this is some interesting story, interesting story, interesting story, interesting story, and then it just ends. Bam. Further reading, which again, I think this would be a great book to actually look into the further reading for, but I wish there had been like a chapter which kind of summarized what I had learned or gave some more context to it, but that's just a minor complaint. This was a 4-star read. I think this is a great book to begin with, and it definitely made me, first of all, want to take a trip to see some of these places. Unfortunately, that's not something I can just get in my car and go to. That would have to be a planned trip because it would be in a different country. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book, and I think this would be a great book. So I really thank David Castleton for putting this book together. Whatever inspired him to create this book, it was a really, really, really good idea. So if you get the opportunity, please get this book. Please check it out. It's definitely worth it. It says here on the back that it's cost $14 US, which this thing is completely worth the price. I really, really enjoyed the book. Anyways, if you have any interesting stories about churches or other religious places, or any other interesting just cultures, traditions, folklores that you know of, feel free to share them. I apparently am very interested in this, and I did not know it. Other than that, I will see you guys next time.